Hello and welcome to an introductory presentation on the planning phase of project management methodology, where we will discuss many aspects of the planning phase and project planning in general. I hope you find some or all of this information helpful. The planning phase is the third of 5 phases in the project management process. It uses the project rules, documentation, and procedures set forth in the previous 2 phases, the initiation and assessment phases, as a foundation and defines the path to achieve the project goals. Project planning is performed by the project manager and the core project team. They in turn interface with the appropriate elements of the organization and identify the work to be completed. Once underway, the project manager and team will create a project charter, which will include the following information: the major participants, the scope, the objectives, the measurements, the assumptions and restrictions, and the project manager authority. 2 other components will be the risk management plan, where the risks will be identified and a plan to control them will be developed, and also the work breakdown structure, which identifies the tasks required in order to achieve the project goals and the estimated effort required. Other documentation can include the staffing plan, material and equipment plan, the project schedule, or the project spending plan. Next, you will hold the team meeting. Team meetings will allow for initial and continued introductions. It will also allow the project manager to assess team members' strengths and weaknesses. Successful team performance depends on balancing personal accountability for individual ideas and behaviors with those that the team demands. Now on to the team contract. This is a set of guidelines that project team members each agree to live by during the term of the project. It includes team meeting ground rules, meeting guidelines and procedures, and any other guidelines that team members want to use in handling meetings, conflicts, and decisions. The group members must communicate and negotiate effectively to identify standards for mutually acceptable quality of work and comfortable levels of group participation and individual accountability. A requirements traceability matrix may be used to check to see if the current project requirements are being met, and to help in the creation of a request for proposal, various deliverable documents, and project plan tasks. Traceability matrices can be established using a variety of tools, including requirements management software or even simple databases and spreadsheets. A traceability matrix is created by associating requirements with the work products that satisfy them. Tests are then associated with these requirements, and products are then tested against the requirements. Next, we will discuss one of the most critical pieces of a project, the scope document. Writing an effective scope document can be a difficult task for a project manager, but a well-written scope statement can help the rest of the project flow along with minimal problems. The first step on writing a scope statement is filling in the project name, a project charter, and a list of the project owner, sponsors, and stakeholders. Next, a project justification will need to be identified, as well as project requirements, milestones, and deliverables. Finally, cost estimates need to be provided within the scope statement. If there are any changes to the project, it is very important that a scope change addendums are added and signed by the involved parties. The biggest thing to avoid is what is called scope creep. Scope creep is a situation in which the scope gradually increases over time as the project continues and things are added. The charter often includes the name of the project owner as well as project sponsors. It may often identify the project objectives and goals as well as the resources and time constraints. The charter is used as a focal point throughout the life of the project. Next up, we have the statement of work. The statement of work is a formal document that captures and defines the work activities, deliverables, and a timeline a vendor will execute against in performance of specified work for a customer. Detailed requirements and pricing are usually included in the statement of work, along with the standard regulatory and governance terms and conditions. Now that you have an idea of what is involved in getting started, let's spend some time explaining how to logically prepare your documentation. Step 1. Scope of work. This describes the work to be done in detail. Specify the hardware and software involved and the exact nature of the work. Step 2. Location of work. Describe where the work must be performed. Specify the location of hardware and software and where the people must perform the work. Step 3 is the period of performance. Specify when the work is expected to start and end, working hours, number of hours that can be billed per week, where the work must be performed, and related schedule information. Step 4 is the deliverable schedule. List specific deliverables, describe them in detail, and specify when they are due. Step 5 is the applicable standards. Specify any company or industry-specific standards that are relevant to performing the work. 6 is the acceptance criteria. Describe how the buyer organization will determine if the work is acceptable. Step 7. Special requirements. Specify any special requirements such as hardware, software certifications, minimum degree or experience level of personnel, travel requirements, and so on. Developing an effective schedule of the project milestones is instrumental to the success of a project. Included in developing a project schedule is the use of charts. The most effective and commonly used charts are the work breakdown structure, the Gantt chart, and the network diagram. A work breakdown schedule, or WBS, helps to make complex projects more manageable. The WBS is designed to help break down a project into manageable chunks that can be effectively estimated and supervised. A Gantt chart is a type of bar chart that illustrates a project's schedule. Gantt charts illustrate the start and finish dates of the terminal elements and summary elements of a project. A network diagram is a schematic display of the logical relationships among or sequencing of project activities. Network diagrams are the preferred technique for showing activity sequencing. The Communication Management Plan is a written document that outlines the details of a project's communication needs and expectations. This includes specific communication technologies that are required, such as the need for dedicated equipment like cell phones and laptops, so that project team members can keep in touch. This may also include specifications for update schedules, for instance, setting up weekly email updates or monthly status update conference call. Project cost estimating is usually performed by summing estimates for individual project elements into a project total. There are 4 different types of estimates that can be used. Bottom-up estimates are often prepared by contractors to support their proposal bid process. This involves using a detailed WBS and pricing out each work package making up the project. This method can be very time-consuming, but does result in a fairly accurate estimate. Top-down estimates use rules of thumb, parametric models, analogies, or cost estimating relationships, or CERs. CERs based on historical experience can provide data such as the cost to develop software or per square foot project pricing. Design to cost is a process where cost goals for development, acquisition, or operations and maintenance are used as design parameters along with technical performance in the system's design trade-off process. Cost as the independent variable is an affordability-based method for planning project scope. It starts with a fixed budget and works backwards through an iterative process of prioritizing and selecting requirements to arrive at a project scope achievable within budget constraints. Resource management is the identification, distribution, and monitoring of all project resources. Several tools and methods exist to aid the project manager, including a responsibility assignment matrix, organizational charts, and resource histograms. The project organization chart is a tool used by team members and leaders to keep a thorough organizational record of the project's processes. It is effective in the attempts to thoroughly track and record the actual deployment processes that have been implemented within the scope and any particular relationships between project members throughout the project. One useful tool that project managers use to keep these assignments clear is the responsibility assignment matrix. The matrix matches the project deliverables with the people who are responsible for them. For every piece of the project, the matrix shows who is responsible for that component or aspect of the project. A resource histogram is a useful visual representation which illustrates resource utilization over a specific time period. They may show available resources, resources currently being utilized, and how long each resource will be needed. Risk management is an important function in organizations today. Companies undertake increasingly complex and ambitious projects, and those projects must be executed successfully in an uncertain and often risky environment. No project is complete without risks. As a responsible manager, it will be your job to be aware of your project's risks and to assess and prioritize these risks. The risk impact probability chart is based on the principle that a risk has 2 primary dimensions, probability and impact. Probability is the likelihood of a risk event to occur. The probability can range anywhere from just over 0% to just below 100%. Impact is the effect the risk will have. Risks can be both negative and positive. The impact chart allows you to rate potential risks on these 2 dimensions. The probability that a risk will occur is represented on one axis, and the impact is on the other axis. A risk register is a tool commonly used in project planning and organizational risk assessments to identify, analyze, and manage risks. It takes all risk information gathered throughout the project and combines it into one easy-to-read chart. The risk register contains the information about identified project risks such as likelihood, severity, countermeasures, status, risk owner, risk type, and etc. In summation, the planning phase is considered to be the most important phase of project management. You will want to spend and focus as much time as necessary in this phase if your project is to be successful. From all the document writing to collecting the vast amounts of information, the planning phase can seem daunting. Cover all of your bases and think of as many different scenarios during your planning. Brainstorm hard in your meetings and have detailed documentation which outlines specifically as much information as necessary. Do all of these things and you will be successful in your project. Good luck, and we'll see you at the end celebrating at the wrap-up party.